Time to get unplugged from the Matrix and join humanity's future war with machines. Released in 1999, The Matrix tells the story of Thomas Anderson, who goes by the online name of Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, who believes that his otherwise mundane world is not all that it seems. He meets up with Morpheus, played by Lawrence Fishburne, a mysterious figure who's perceived as being an online terrorist and a freedom fighter of truth, who promises to give Neo the answers to what the Matrix is, and after taking the red pill, Neo discovers that his life was a lie, living in a virtual reality computer world known as the Matrix, and that the real world is a nightmarish, destroyed place after humans went to war with artificial intelligence, whom have created the Matrix and keep most of the human race unknowingly imprisoned within its system. It is believed that Neo has been prophesied to be the one to end the war with the machines, in this revolutionary science fiction masterpiece, which mixes martial arts action with cyberpunk science fiction, and co-stars Carrie-Anne Moss as fellow freedom fighter Trinity, and Hugo Weaving as Agent Smith, a villainous computer program designed to stop people from leaving the Matrix, whom himself wants to break free from. I can remember watching The Matrix when it first came out in 1999, and it honestly blew my mind. I had literally never seen anything quite like it before. So today we are going to have our minds blown once again by looking into 10 things that you didn't know about The Matrix. Let's check it out. Number 10. Comic book origins. The Matrix was the brainchild of sibling directing team The Wachowskis, and when they first conceived the idea of The Matrix, they originally envisioned it to be a comic book. The pair already had a history of writing comic books for Marvel during the 90s, such as Ecto Kid and a comic book series for Hellraiser and Nightbreed. When it came to creating The Matrix, the Wachowskis took inspiration from several different sources, including Hong Kong kung fu movies, Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, and anime films like Ghost in the Machine and Akira. But as The Matrix evolved more and more, it became clear that this was way too ambitious for a comic book, so it was written into a movie script instead. Number 9. The Matrix was part of a 3-picture deal. Funny enough, The Matrix probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the Sylvester Stallone action movie Assassins. Yep, feeling confused? Well, let me explain. The Wachowskis wrote the script for Assassins and in 1994 submitted the script to Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers bought the rights to Assassins along with 2 other scripts written by the Wachowskis, including the crime thriller Bound and of course The Matrix. Assassins was released in 1995, and the Wachowskis themselves directed Bound in 1996. Bound gave the Wachowskis some momentum as filmmakers, and from there they wanted to get to work on The Matrix. It would have been a daring investment for Warner Brothers, as The Matrix production was going to cost over $60 million thanks to all the sets and special effects required. But thankfully, big-time Hollywood producer Joel Silver came on board as producer, which would have helped the project get off the ground, as he had produced many successful action movies like Predator and Die Hard. To help fully realize their vision to the studio, the Wachowskis hired comic book artists Jeff Darrow and Steve Skross to draw up an entire storyboard presentation of the film. And thus, The Matrix was in production. Number 8. The Matrix could have been a Will Smith vehicle. For the movie's main heroic lead of Neo, the Wachowskis turned their attention to Will Smith and offered him the role, but he turned it down to star in, well, Wild Wild West instead. Ugh. Despite the film he chose being a commercial and critical dud, Smith has since said that he doesn't think that he would have been right for the role, as he was not mature enough of an actor at that time. Other actors considered for the role included Nicolas Cage, Brad Pitt and Val Kilmer, all of whom declined. In the end, it was down to a choice between Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves, and so Reeves won the part. During the 90s, Reeves had proven himself to be a top-notch action movie star, having appeared in Point Break, Speed, and Chain Reaction. But yeah, just think about that for a second. Will Smith could have been in The Matrix, one of the greatest science fiction movies of all time, and chose to star in Wild Wild West instead. a movie notoriously known for being awful.
Damn, Will Smith. I love you, mate, and I think that you're one of the best actors of our modern time. But, yeah, you really chose the wrong movie here. But still, Keanu Reeves does a brilliant job as Neo. He is convincing in the action scenes and brings a lot of vulnerability and likability to the part.
Number 7. Other casting possibilities. Both Gary Oldman and Samuel L. Jackson were considered for the role of Morpheus till Lawrence Fishburne landed the part, bringing with him great wisdom to the role. There are rumours that Sean Connery was also offered the part, but apparently they are just rumours. Fishburne was also asked to take inspiration from the Morpheus character from the Sandman comics when it came to performing the part. Janet Jackson was offered the role of Trinity, but she had to turn it down due to other commitments. She later regretted this, saying turning down the part was not easy for her. Carrie-Anne Moss took on the part of Trinity instead, where she brings a lot of heart to the role while being total badass, not falling into the usual just a love interest trope. Jean Reno was offered the role of Agent Smith, but turned down the part when he found out that the movie was going to be filmed in Australia, as he didn't want to move there while filming was taking place, so Hugo Weaving took the part instead, who didn't have a problem with the filming location being an Australian native himself.
In fact, a lot of the actors cast in the movie said things like when they read the script they didn't understand it or even know how the hell the movie could be made, but they believed in the project thanks to the Wachowskis.
Number 6. Preparation for filming. Before filming began on The Matrix, the cast had to get themselves trained both mentally and physically. To get in the mindset of the movie, the cast were asked to read the French philosophical book Simulacre and Simulation, which challenges both the boundaries of reality and society, along with symbolism in both media and culture. They also had to read the book Out of Control, which explores the idea of society and intelligence being like a beehive structure. Yeah, these books were pretty heavy reading, and not to mention pretty complicated too. They also had to explore the theory of evolutionary psychology. The cast also had to partake in 4 months of training for the movie's fighting and martial arts scenes. Chinese filmmaker Yuen Wu Ping was hired to work on the movie's martial arts scenes and was helping the actors to find their own style of martial arts techniques. What didn't help is that during the vigorous training, Keanu Reeves was still getting over spinal surgery, of which could be restrictive for him, and during the training Hugo Weaving would sustain a hip injury, which also required surgery. But on film, all the actors looked like professional martial artists. Number 5. Filming location. Most of The Matrix was filmed at Fox Studios in Sydney, Australia, as well as on location filming taking part around the city of Sydney. It was believed that Sydney could pass off as an American city, and looked slightly futuristic. Australia was a cheaper location for filming, and the Sydney Fox Studios was fairly new at the time as it opened in 1998. At that stage, not many Hollywood movies were being filmed in Australia. Just 3 years prior, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie was also filmed in Sydney, along with other films being filmed in Australia like The Island of Dr. Moreau and parts of the Phantom movie. But Australia hadn't quite gotten its foothold in the Hollywood movie business yet. However, after The Matrix, many films were suddenly being filmed in the land down under, including the Star Wars prequels, where there was a sudden boom in Hollywood movies being filmed in Australia. So The Matrix is an important chapter in the history of filmmaking in Australia. Although while filming The Matrix, they had to make sure that they didn't capture any famous Sydney landmarks, like the Sydney Harbour Bridge or the Opera House.
In fact, in the entire Matrix series, there are background characters who are played by Australian actors who had previously starred in Australian TV shows like Blue Heelers, Heartbreak High and Home and Away and so on.
Number 4. On-set accidents. The actors had to really throw themselves in their roles and go above and beyond. For the scene where Neo wakes up in the real world, Keanu Reeves shaved his head and lost 15 pounds in order to look malnourished. And of course there were scrapes along the way too. During one of her action scenes, Carrie-Anne Moss badly injured her leg. The scene where Morpheus and Neo are training in the dojo caused the actors to receive several bumps and bruises due to the close contact that was required for that scene. Reeves became frustrated as he had difficulties performing the triple kick move, which caused filming the scene to be postponed. However, he did manage to do the maneuver 3 days later. However, the person who suffered the most injuries during filming was Keanu Reeves' stunt double. who while filming was inflicted to broken knees, broken ribs, and a dislocated shoulder.
But, as I often say on this show, there is always going to be injuries on set, particularly with action movies.
Number 3. Recycled movie set. At the start of the movie, we see the Trinity character running on a rooftop in order to avoid the agents, where we see that impressive rooftop jump. The rooftop was actually a set left over from fellow science fiction movie Dark City, which was released 1 year prior in 1998. The irony is several people have noticed that there are a lot of similarities between Dark City and The Matrix. They are both science fiction movies about questioning false societies, which are secretly prisons being controlled by evil overlords. They were both filmed in Australia, and they both have a green filter over their screen presentations, giving the picture a green tint. And they are both surreal, mind-bending stories exploring breaking the boundaries of reality. And on top of that, both movies have cyberpunk visuals. The biggest difference is The Matrix is more action movie and Dark City is more noir thriller. But no doubt about it, the two movies are very similar. In fact, I've seen some fans claim that Dark City could have been a more widespread movie, but was overshadowed by the eventual release of The Matrix. I personally think the reason The Matrix took off commercially more than Dark City is because it did feel more like a Hollywood movie, and felt more proactive with its action movie approach, and had stars that were more bankable at that time. However, I love both movies, and see them both as parallel companion pieces of each other. They both represent a time when an interest was growing in Hollywood of cyberpunk simulated worlds, and breaking free from those worlds. It's just that The Matrix managed to take off and Dark City didn't. But that doesn't make Dark City less of a movie, and the fact that these two movies share the same set binds them even closer together.
Let's not forget that also at this time there was the even lesser known 13th Floor, which was once again about characters downloading themselves into computerized worlds.
Number 2. The bullet time sensation. One of the most memorable aspects of The Matrix, the one that everyone was talking about, was the famous bullet time effect, where the camera does a 360-degree view of Keanu Reeves bending backwards in order to avoid bullets, in slow motion while the camera is used at normal speed. Nothing like this had ever been seen before, and back in 1999, this looked spectacular. The special effect technique was created for the movie, and yes, bullet time is the actual name of the effect. Before filming the scenes with Keanu Reeves, they first did test filming with a trash can, of all things. I know I'm not the only one to point this out, but in the early 2000s, there was a sudden influx of Matrix parodies that were spoofing the fight scenes from The Matrix. And I mean, these parodies were everywhere. Even Shrek, which came out 2 years later, was mocking the Matrix bullet time effect, like it thought it was being funny and clever. But thankfully, the bullet time parodies died down in time. Number 1. Uploading success. The Matrix was released in March in the States and April in Australia, and would go on to make over $465 million on a $63 million budget, making it a financial hit. It was the 5th highest grossing movie of 1999, as well as also being the highest grossing R-rated movie of that year. The Matrix would also go on to win 4 Academy Awards, and of course was praised by critics and audiences alike, with it being described as spectacular. Not only has the Matrix brand become a pop cultural landmark, but also a subculture in its own right, and still is to this day. And still to this day, it's often quoted and referenced and even philosophized. Beyond the spectacular action sequences and razzle-dazzle momentum of the movie, what I love most about The Matrix is, to me, it's a powerful movie with a powerful message of liberation. Breaking free from slavery, and breaking free from the binds and restraints placed on us by society. Its message is that we can be free if we want to, and be who we want to be without society restrictions telling us otherwise. A movie that challenges our thinking and perceptions, and dares to ask us, if you could, would you go down the rabbit hole and take the red pill?
I love this movie. I loved it back in 1999 and still love it now 21 years later. I swear this movie doesn't age, and only gets better and more relevant in time. It's a movie that is easy to see why it's celebrated so much, and it's as much of an important science fiction movie as, say, Star Wars or Terminator 2. So go back and re-enter the world of The Matrix and give it another viewing. Anyway, I'm Minty, and remember, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. See ya!